This very, very old market called Suq al-Hamidiyya. And Suq al-Hamidiyya has a very famous ice cream shop. Syrians who hadn't been to Damascus in 12 plus years, they chose their first place to go to was Bettany. So Bettany was overrun.
It's a very human story, isn't it? The kind of that comfort and like just finding joy.
There's a really cool new documentary that I'm excited to watch. And it's called Lost World with Bettany Hughes, the Nabataeans. So this documentary delves into who they are, why they were there, what they built.
The kind of footage within the documentary is not just kind of like external surface. Like we kind of very much like go inside. That's kind of the interior shots are guided by Bedouin tribes. So it's like really like you get to kind of see the heart and kind of get a lot more of the story and the history.
What is a Christmas movie you guys always come back to every year?
There has been a lot of new Christmas films out this year on multi-platform situation.
Hello, everyone. Today we're going to be talking about the art scene in Syria.
A documentary exploring the ancient Nabataean civilization.
And Christmas films to get you in the holiday spirit.
This is Culture Bites coming to you from the National News. I'm Enas Refaei.
I'm Farah Andrews.
And I'm Maan Jalal.
Here we are in our new home.
Welcome, welcome, welcome.
Studio.
So we took a week off.
Yes, we had to. Because
in relocation.
In relocation, which we weren't expecting. No one was. So we're really... Sorry?
Yeah. Have you guys noticed anything special about our new studio?
I thought you were going to ask about you, and I was like, everything.
Well, it's connected to me because, I'm a narcissist. But something around here that maybe, the beautiful artworks.
Artwork is donated.
Yes, by me.
Your collection.
For my collection, I brought them in. Just quickly, I want to say that these are really nicely framed in Satwa. So if you want to get artworks framed, you should definitely go to Satwa. It's affordable, and it's a really great place
Where's
to get
Satwa?
framed.
What's this? I don't know.
What?
Oh, yeah, because you're Abu Dhabi.
What?
It's a very cool Dubai neighborhood. It's where Ravi's is. You've been?
I've been
you went to
there.
Ravi's.
Yeah.
So you've been to Satwa.
Oh, so I've been to Satwa. Okay,
Yes.
cool.
So anything you want to get done for the house, for the car, for anything on like a more affordable, haggling price, you go there. They have lots of plant shops and lots of framers and lots of places to get like random knickknacks fixed and sorted.
Tailors.
Lots of
fabric
great tailors.
shops.
Yes.
Christmas trees, framing,
Sign me
everything.
up.
So I chose that painting there to bring in because it's a little family and we're a little family.
Oh, you're adorable.
I love that. So for people who might be listening to us, do you want to describe the painting?
Yes, it's a stylized figures, very Henry Moorish. He's a British artist, if you guys know Henry Moorish. And it's painted in gouache. It's actually from Vietnam. Friends of mine went to Vietnam and were in a market and they saw some paintings. They're taking photos and sending them to me and they got me these. And so then I went to Satwa and got them framed. It's gouache on paper.
I have a question.
So, yeah.
Is this going to be a rotating gallery? And each week we can have a different...
I think I'm going to do that because we were talking before. We're not sure of our full setup now, right here. I mean, it might look different. They might move the paintings around. So I was like, I'll bring something in next week. And I have something very cool to bring in next week. That's an artist from the region.
Lovely.
This is a lovely little touch.
Who knew this was going to happen? So from one reviving art scene in our studio to another. So while we were away, who would have guessed, thought, imagined that Syria would go through such a transformation in such a short amount of time? So for the people who don't know, the Bashar Al Assad's regime has now fallen.
It was a pretty seismic week.
Mm-hmm.
It was huge on the news desk. It wasn't an easy week. It was grappling with so many moving parts. And then suddenly we just heard the news and it was like, wow, it's actually happened. I used to live in Syria.
That's right. Damascus, right?
Yeah, a long time ago. So I feel like this kind of connection to the city. And a lot of my friends who used to live there with me at the same time reached out and we were all kind of like had this kind of moment where we remembered our memories of living in Damascus and what that was like. And then hearing the news coming from Damascus, there was one thing that really stuck with me, which is so there's so much in Syria and I really do hope that I get to visit again because I really enjoyed my time there. There is so much, but there's this very, very old market called Suq al-Hamidiyya, which is in the very, very old town of Damascus, kind of still in the walls of Damascus. I think it's like, it's just off a straight street, which is mentioned in the Bible. So it's like an actual street mentioned in the Bible, still, people living there, bustling. And Suq al-Hamidiyya has a very famous ice cream shop. right? Called Bettany. So before I went to Damascus, my dad told me tales of when he was a teenager and he visited Bettany. And it was like this like, it's an iconic place. I was really struggling to think of something similar in the UK. This is like, we're talking about like hundreds of years. It's been there for a very long time. And they make ice cream in the traditional way, which is like pounding with orchid root is the flavour.
Oh.
I know, it's delicious. So it's quite a floral, slightly different to a rose. And it was their recipe. They came up with it, and they would pound this like ice, and then you'd get this kind of like cone of orchid root ice cream, and they would like roll it in pistachio nuts.
Oh my gosh, it sounds incredible.
Yeah.
It's incredible. And a lot of people, like, that was their first place. So people that hadn't been, it's like Syrians who hadn't been to Damascus in 12 plus years because of, the civil war and everything that was happening there, and were like scared. They chose their first place to go to was Bettany. So Bettany was overrun. And
it's a very human story,
Yeah.
isn't it? The kind of that comfort and like just finding joy in, yeah.
So I really love that. But in my time, so I wanted to talk a bit about, and like, so a lot about artists. So a lot of these artists are actually in exile.
Yeah.
And now are probably hoping to go back.
Yeah, so we have a piece in our section now about a lot of artists who are in. When I say artists, I don't just mean painters or sculptors. I mean like writers and musicians and writers. And traditionally, Syria has always been known as a place where it had a massive, thriving arts community.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the masrah, what do you call the play scene? Play scene?
Theatre.
Oh my God, what is wrong with me?
The stage, darling, the stage.
Yeah, the stage. The theatre scene in Syria has always been really, really well known, along with Egypt. And, over the years, that community, community of thespians or artists has kind of gone smaller and smaller, with a lot of Syrian artists, immigrating or leaving, or have been forced to leave, or being exiled, or, not being able to express themselves artistically. So there's been a call by a lot of artists in the region now who are really excited that now there is more freedom. And they're hoping there'll be more freedom in Syria to pursue those arts again, and for there to be no limitations on what kind of themes, topics, stories that they can now explore and examine and write about. And I think, just like you said, that really interesting story, like, it's going to be, I think, it's hopeful, but it's also going to be so harrowing to hear all those stories that have already been happening that we don't even know about. Because for me, like, even for us living in this region, right, just seeing all the news that we've been covering that's been coming out since the fall, it's been, crazy, because we just had no idea. So I'm wondering now, like, what are the stories that are going to come out that artists are going to write about, create work about, do plays about, do films about, from the past, like, 12, 20, 50 years that we have no clue about. So that, on one side, I think is, like, kind of harrowing and scary, but also scary in terms of we have no idea what's been happening. But also, it's hopeful. It's going to be exciting for so many Syrians that have been in exile or have immigrated, or like third-generation Syrians who live in Canada or Australia or America, being able to go back and reconnect with their roots and maybe create work from that side of things as well.
The piece that you're referring to, I'd like to give the writer a shout out. It's Danny Mackey, and he's in Damascus, and he has been he's been writing for us for years, and he's brilliant. He is a very engaged in the cultural scene, and he writes so brilliantly about music, whether that's like on stage or it's like rap and like these like amazing performances that are happening. He also writes about like the kind of like smaller parts of culture. Like, he's written for us about like soap making in Damascus. And he does just such lovely, he puts such a brilliant microscope on all the different facets of Syrian culture. And then, his piece that we put up this week about that kind of, this like kind of speaking to
people on the ground, artists on the ground. Yeah, it was a really great piece to read, actually.
I do hope for any Arabic speakers out there, or people who want to learn Arabic, there's a very famous series. You know what I'm going to say.
I do.
Yeah. There's a very famous series.
You don't look
Syria.
confident.
No,
You don't
I'm not. I'm a bit confused.
Did you ever watch Bab al-Hara?
Oh, yes, of course. Yes,
Okay,
yes,
so
yes.
like, I think it's not just, theatre. Like we keep saying, there's so many different...
Bab al-Hara, that would translate to like the neighborhood, I guess.
The neighborhood
Door? Gate? The gates of the neighborhood?
The gate of the neighborhood.
Okay.
Yeah. and it's like set in Old Town Damascus. And what's lovely is if we ever get to go back to Damascus, or the houses are all these kind of like little doors and alleyways, and they open up, and there's a courtyard and all that. There's like a little garden. And it's like you get
a lot of the traditional houses in Syria and a lot of Arab countries are have this outdoor indoor flow where you have a courtyard set in a house and the rooms all overlook the courtyard. So that show really focused on that architecture and the lives and the interlinking lives of all the neighbors, and especially in those old homes, they're very big. And so when you get married, you would move into your husband's home with his mother and his sisters and so it's kind of about that intergenerational kind of these kind of stories. Yeah,
proper sitcom.
For any as of Enas, I guess you have like real good insight into this, but for people that might not know, can you explain why under Assad there was a kind of step back from the pushing of like a stronger cultural scene, and why that wasn't like a kind of priority?
I think it's really interesting. When I was first there, it was around 2006-07 time. And I think at the time, there was this feeling that perhaps he was going to be different from his father, and that perhaps there was going to be this allowance of more expression. But I think that there was such a culture of fear, and honestly, like there was a distrust towards everyone because of the way the regime handled kind of like information and intelligence gathering, that it made people very, very scared. So even like having I remember going to pop up gallery spaces in Old Town Damascus, in like the Jewish quarter or the Christian quarter of Old Town Damascus, and these beautiful works of art being on display, and like from everything in Old Town Damascus, from really traditional kind of like the laying of mother of pearl into furniture and chessboards, all the way to like weaving of fabrics. And then your more contemporary art. There was just such a thriving scene. And then unfortunately, I think, people were just too scared, and these places just kind of they didn't disappear though. They kind of just retracted slightly. So I think this is one of the hopes that everybody is going to have now in this like new era of Syria, which inshallah, I only say inshallah, like we really hope, we're hoping that we get to see all of the difference, the kind of, I suppose you could say that there's such a cultural difference within Syria that it gets to express itself finally.
I think also it's a combination of two things from a lot of artists on the ground there that have said that they feel that the regime didn't focus so much on conserving the ancient sites, to focus money on culture and arts. That's one side of it. And I think another side of it is as well with all arts, you as an artist, whether you're again in the theater or you're creating paintings, you need to have that freedom where even if you're creating work that's evasive, it's not going to be misinterpreted in some way. And so the fear always there was, even if they wanted to say something that was critical, and sort of mask it, there's a fear that there were going to be, them or their families would be, persecuted or punished for that. So even Syrians who live abroad were scared to do something under their own name because they're worried about their family. And it happens in any kind of country that's ruled by, it happened in Iraq, it happened in a lot of other countries.
But these creatives don't go away, they don't disappear.
No,
they don't. They might take a step back, they might be quiet, but
or work under pseudonyms like Saint
sure.
Hoax. He's Syrian.
Yeah,
he's an internet artist and commentator. So he's been working under a pseudonym for years.
So I think it's going to be a very interesting, few months, few years, decade. Watching kind of what.
I mean, I think it's probably going to be a decade or so. I think, like you said earlier in this segment, like there's going to be a lot of cleansing that needs to happen now, where we're going to get a voice maybe from Syria that has been definitely silenced, like whether it's talking about the prison system, the regime. So I think we're going to see art exploring that side a lot as we deal with the trauma of what's happened. So yeah, it's a very interesting time.
Just to give a quick example, because I know we're before we switch, after the fall in Iraq, one of the greatest novels that's come out of Iraq is The Frankenstein of Baghdad by Ahmed Fiddawi, and that was a novel that explored all of the things that were happening during the sanctions and the war after, and it was translated into English, and it's won plenty of awards, and it's one of the seminal novels, I think, of the 21st century from Iraq. So that is an example that I'm like wondering now, selfishly, what story or what artwork or what novel is going to come out that's going to really try and capture all of that and make people understand like what was happening. So that's something I don't want to say look forward to, but it'll be interesting to see,
It'll probably be a sci-fi.
Yep, sci-fi or magic realism.
I really want to go back to Syria. Can I just say that over and over again? I cannot wait to go back. Speaking
of going back, you might not go back to Syria now, but you can go back to Jordan, which is where you're from.
Stop pretending you're Syrian.
There's a really cool new documentary that I'm excited to watch, and it's called Lost World with Bettany Hughes, the Nabataeans. Now, do you guys know Bettany Hughes?
I don't know enough about her.
No.
So I got to meet her 3 years ago when she came for the Lit Fest. So she is a historian and academic, and she's written a couple of books. She's written two books, I think, about Helen of Troy, one about Venus and Aphrodite, and this brilliant book that I have at home about Istanbul and the stories around Istanbul. So she's like really interested in this region, the Mediterranean region. And she's done a few documentaries about these topics. And she has a new documentary that is coming out. It had its premiere at the Red Sea Film Festival, and it's about the Nabataeans.
Amazing. My people.
And your people. So all of us have seen these amazing images in Jordan and Petra of that, what do you call it, a castle or a palace?
It's a treasury.
It's a treasury.
It's a treasury, yeah. It was the treasury for
This
Petra.
explains a lot, actually, to do with this story. It's a treasury?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's called the treasury.
Oh, right.
The Red Rose City.
And it's carved out of...
So it's carved into the rock, and that was... you have to go down the Siq, which is the really long pathway, which kind of hides the ancient city in between the rocks, which is why it was so protected for so long. The treasury was carved into the rock, and that's where they kept their treasure.
It's stunning, and I think one of the first things people think about when they think of Jordan or Petra, they just have an image of that treasury.
It's better in real life.
I can imagine.
Honestly, I think that everyone, like, you see those photos and it kind of blows you away, but honest, I've seen it at night, I've seen it in day, I've seen it as a child, I've seen it as an adult, and every single time it blows me away.
I've seen Zendaya in front of it because she took a photo when she filmed Dune over there.
What?
Wow.
Wow, yeah.
Two absolutely striking figures put it together.
Yeah. But since we know it so well, most people do, it's interesting now to learn about the people who built that, which are the Nabataeans, which I didn't know anything about. Do you guys know anything about them? Do you know anything about them?
I know a bit from school, but like not that much, actually. I really don't know that much. I just know that they were there for quite some time.
Yeah. So this documentary delves into who they are, why they were there, what they built. And it's really interesting because they reminded me a lot of the kind of vision and mission that the UAE has, which is they were a people who believed a lot in creating in trade and diplomacy, and a lot of their architecture, like particularly this treasury thing, it's not from one specific place. It's influenced by the Greeks and other, I think Northern Arabia, and that's because those are the places that they visited and did trade with. And I think one of the main products they dealt with was incense.
Wow!
And so whenever they'd go to these places, they'd be influenced by the architecture, and they were a people who were absolutely not interested in war and to take over other tribes or other countries. They were just more interested in diplomacy and trade.
We should contextualize it in history as well.
Oh, yes.
So they were kind of flourishing between the 4th and 2nd centuries BC. So we're talking about like ancient civilization.
Ancient.
And
pretty old.
And so when you kind of think about the scale and scope of the treasury, when you think about Petra and you think about, it's spoken about so much kind of like, how did the pyramids happen?
Yeah.
But it is also like the artistry that has gone into creating it. And then it's not just Petra, right? It's in AlUla, it's Niagara.
So AlUla is like only just recently we've kind of like been, I feel like in recent years we've been really exposed to AlUla and its connection to Petra.
And it's the kind of opening of tourism in Saudi and...
Yeah, well, that's how Bettany, is that how I say her name? Yeah, Bettany. That's interesting.
First name terms.
Yeah. That's when AlUla first opened, she has a folder in her home dedicated just to the Nabataeans because she was really interested in them. And she was like, yes, this is my chance to learn more about them and figure out like the whole scope of things and start this journey for her. So so AlUla was really integral into opening up that whole road.
Yeah. What I like about Petra as well, because I've been going there for so many years, Jordanian. When I was really little, there were still Bedouins living in Petra.
I've seen, yes.
So within Petra, there's lots of little caves.
Yes.
And there's actually a really great book called Married to a Bedouin.
I've read that.
Have you read that?
Yeah.
Okay, it's a book by a woman who I've met actually in
did you?
Petra. Yes.
She's a British woman, or was
non-fiction.
she American?
No, I think she was Australian, or she is Australian.
Non-fiction.
It's non-fiction. It's about a woman who goes to Petra in the 80s, falls in love, and stays there.
For love with a Bedouin.
Moves to Petra.
Yeah.
She moves
What
to
I
Petra.
mean.
And she lives in a cave, and she, hangs out with the Bedouins. It's a great story. I mean, well, it's her life story, which is absolutely fascinating.
I'm definitely going to have to read it.
Oh yeah, you definitely should. It's kind of, it reminds me a lot of kind of the kind of juxtaposition of coming from the West and living in the East. But also, she doesn't just move to the East; she moves in with Bedouins, living in the caves of Petra. So like a real switch.
That's a nice link to this documentary as well, because the kind of footage within the documentary is not just kind of like external surface. Like we kind of very much like go inside. That's kind of the interior shots are guided by Bedouin tribes. So it's like really like you get to kind of see the heart and kind of get a lot more of the story and the history, which is fascinating.
What's really interesting as well is that Bettany was saying, I keep pretending like I know her, Bettany Hughes, I met her like once for 5 minutes, was talking about how what's interesting is the artwork that the Nabataeans were interested in was very much about people's connection with nature, which I thought that was interesting because when you look at any people from any point of time, when you look at the artwork they create, what are the themes they're grappling with, usually tells you a lot about what was happening in their life, what like issues they were interested in. So the fact that these people were really interested in the relationship between nature and humans says a lot about how they viewed the world, how they operated in the world, how the fact that they built their architecture out of rock as opposed to like taking the rock out and building it somewhere else. So I think it's a real interesting insight into their psyche.
The documentary it's just had its film festival premiere, so it's not available to kind of watch on a wider platform yet, but it's definitely something we'll keep an eye on and include in our recommendations when it is available.
Yeah.
We're back with Farah's favourite segment
Of the year.
So I think we should just go on, Farah, crack on.
Christmas movies. Hey, cracker. Oh, we should have brought crackers in for the Christmas episode. So we know that I love a Christmas film. We know that I love a Christmas film of dubious standards.
Any film that's Christmas related.
So I found out actually I have a bottom line. No, I have a standard.
You lie.
It is so low, but I hit it. I hit it this week.
And it was?
So low.
The Merry Gentleman. Have you watched it?
What is this? No.
It's on Netflix?
It's so bad that it's not even on our list. It is on Netflix. It's a new one this year. So basically, there has been a lot of new Christmas films out this year on multi-platform situation. But Netflix really does seem to kind of take the lead here, where we don't get Hallmark.
Everyone's just looking to be cheered up this year.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, well, in that case, don't watch The Merry Gentleman, because I sat there watching it and I said to my friend, I feel sad. Premise is a woman loses her job. She's a dancer in New York, the big city.
Oh, and, I've seen the trailer for this.
She goes back home for Christmas to a small town. I think we're talking Midwest. And she finds out her parents' bar is struggling. So she has the crazy idea of doing a kind of festive magic mic show that's going to fix the venue. It stars Chad Michael Murray.
Oh, brilliant. Has this gone straight to VHS?
No, it's not even, they haven't even wasted plastic on it. It's just gone straight to the bottom of Netflix.
Can you imagine being a writer in the writer's room, just coming up with these crazy...
I can, because I think about it all the time. It's my dream job. But some other new Christmas films this year include Our Little Secret of Lindsay Lohan. I've spoken about that already. It's like, obviously it's terrible, but it's also great.
Oh, it's fantastic. And we're all fans of Lindsay.
We love Lindsay.
Yeah. I enjoyed Hot Frosty.
Did you?
I did. It's Lacey Chambers. I think that's how you say her name.
She's also Mean Girls alumni.
Yes. So I like seeing the Mean Girls alumni coming together doing Christmas movies.
I liked
at the
the
same
reference
time.
to Lindsay in
Yes.
Hot Frosty. There's a bit where they're showing what the last Lindsay Lohan Christmas film, Falling
Irish
for
Wish.
You.
Oh, Falling for You. Okay.
And she goes, hey, I think I went to school with her. I'm like, Netflix, you're creating this whole other world.
Yes, it's like a
God, I love that.
multiverse.
Shall we talk about a film that all three of us have watched and we think is very, very good?
Mhm.
Yes.
That Christmas. It's a cartoon.
And it's brilliant. It's set in a small English town, which on Christmas Day, and is kind of like brings together all these different interlocking little dramas of people in England. It's very quaint and very English. I cried watching it with my children.
It's lovely.
It's really sweet.
Written by, it's based on the books written by Richard Curtis of Love Actually, Four Weddings, every rom-com I've ever loved, Fame. And it stars Bill Nighy, he's one of the characters, and Brian Cox from Succession is Father Christmas and kind of narrates it.
I didn't realize it was Richard Curtis until I was like towards the end, and I realized he's so good at taking so many little stories and intertwining them, but making each one feel like it's a full-fleshed character, full-fleshed story, but he does that so well. Like, he's a great storyteller.
Which was your favourite subplot in that Christmas?
Oh gosh, there's so many.
Yeah.
And my daughter Ada thinks that she is the little girl.
I'm Evie.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
cute.
So sweet.
She's got curly hair, big curly hair. I don't want to give away too much.
No, we aren't going to give away. It's a film that the whole family can watch and enjoy. Like, my nephews have watched it, loved it. My mum watched it, loved it. I watched it, loved it. So it's a kind of across the whole
Family,
age spectrum there, family spectrum.
5-star review from us then.
Yeah,
Can I ask you guys something?
please.
What is a Christmas movie you guys always come back to every year?
Oh, I mean, there's so many. Where do I begin?
Yeah.
Obviously, Love Actually, even though there's problems aplenty, but
Yes.
I do still watch it every single year. I love The Holiday.
I watched
The
The Holiday.
Holiday's good,
That's
yeah.
The Holiday.
I do dip my toe back into Home Alone. I enjoy
Classic,
Home
yeah.
Alone.
Oh.
And the one that I was like never one that I watched every year, but Eddie has brought into my life is the National Lampoon's Christmas, which is it's a Chevy Chase one,
Oh, okay.
and it's absolutely it's comedy of errors, like classic comedy of errors. All the family descend on the house and everyone's there, and it is just like problem, and the Christmas tree is like it's classic Chevy Chase, National Lampoon.
I actually haven't seen that one.
I saw a meme. This will resonate just with only people that have watched it, but it's like you spent your whole life thinking that you were one of Chevy Chase's family, but then you realize that you're now like a millennial and you are the neighbors next door that are kind of like they're like in their 30s, like just a couple, and they're just irritated by the noisy family next door. And I was like, we are Todd. And we're Todd and Margot.
I don't have a favourite one, but I did watch one that I loved this year already. I'm an action fan, and it was Carry On. Have you seen it?
I've not watched it yet, but it's on my list for this week.
It's also on Netflix.
Uh-huh.
Is it on Netflix? Yeah, I think it is.
Yeah, it is on Netflix.
Yeah, and it's like an action film. It's like if you like Die Hard, watch this.
So the way that people like Die Hard's not a Christmas film, Die Hard is a film set at Christmas. Is it a film set at Christmas or is it a Christmas film?
It's a film set at Christmas.
I love that though. It's a very important genre.
All Christmas themed ones are an important genre.
Incredibly important art.
Yeah, it's great art. It's really cool because the Christmas element does play into the storyline as to what's going on, and it's very tense. I needed like a break afterwards.
It's set in an airport at Christmas, which I think even if you don't have like a kind of a threat element, is quite a stressful environment.
Stressful
Airport on Christmas Eve.
Yeah, and America, I think people travel a lot around the holiday season.
It's because the country's absolutely enormous. You can't just jump in the car and go around the corner.
Yeah, it's too big.
Films that I always watch around this time of year. I mean, I love Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. And I always try and read it before watching it. And I love the film, even though now Greta Gerwig, of Barbie fame, is doing them for Netflix as a show. So I'm looking forward to seeing what she'll do with that. Hopefully it'll be out by next year. And also a rom-com that I love that's a Christmas rom-com. I love The Holiday. But While You Were Sleeping with Sandra Bullock. Classic.
You've gone films just with snow, which I think is a whole other genre.
No, but that one is set in Christmas. While You Were Sleeping was set in Christmas.
They are both such nice.
But yeah,
nice
and in Narnia, it's Christmas comes back with Father Christmas, and
Yeah.
I adored that book as a child. And
Narnia?
you've just made a little, I'm just going to put that on my little list,
that on
but
the
that's what I'm going to read.
You know what you should read to the girls before? The Magician's Nephew, which is the book just before the prequel to Narnia and how Narnia came to be. So read that to them first.
And then read
Because that's what I
Narnia.
did to my godkids, and they fell in love with Narnia
that's
because
so
of
nice.
The Magician's Nephew.
I'm
so
writing
do that,
that
now.
down.
Yes, please do.
What a tip for
What a
the
hot
end of this
tip.
year.
Shall we do some recommendations of the week?
Yes. So this weekend, I'll start. This weekend, I went to Seoul DXB. It was very cool. Have you been?
I've been before, but I just
I didn't go this year.
It's not my
Gosh,
vibe.
it's very cool.
It's
It's
very
very cool.
Oh goodness me, it's very cool. It was really fun though. I wore Adidas, so I felt quite cool. But I saw
That's the remit.
that's the remix. But I saw James Blake play live, and it just reminded me actually of he's very smart and he's very good with music, and I decided to go back and listen to like a lot more James Blake. So that's my recommendation for this
love
week.
it.
Is to listen to some James Blake. It's very kind of electronic. His sound is really unique and distinct, and and I actually think he's a great poet.
His sounds evolved a lot. It started off as like quite acoustic chill, and then it's become quite electronic, and he's definitely had like artistic growth.
Yeah, artistic growth in the studio, and it's really lovely. And he did do one of my favourite songs, which is oh God, I can't remember the name of it. It's Fallen. I think it's Fallen. Yeah, but I do think it's really clever, and it's just a nice change to my Spotify list to listen
nice.
to some more of him. So that's my recommendation.
I'm also recommending music this week. I've been listening to a lot of Christmas music, but when I'm not listening to Christmas music, I have been listening to Patterns in Repeat, the new album by Laura Marling. I have gone 2 feet in, and it came out at the end of October, so I've had about a month of really enjoying it. Devastatingly, it came out 5 days before my Spotify Wrap. So she didn't really make the big punch on my Spotify Wrap this year, but I think next year it's basically going to be this album. It's beautiful. I've loved Laura Marling since I was a teenager, and now this album is about like aging and motherhood and like kind of like ways that her body's betrayed her, but also ways that her body has like become like so powerful. And it's like, oh, like I was like, this album it's so lovely that there's like this body of music that I've like grown up with, and I love it. And it's all dedicated to her daughter, who was born, I think, last year.
So funny. I thought this was a new artist, and then you were like, I was listening to her when I was a teenager. I was like, oh, so she's been around for a while.
No, she's obviously very, very young because she's about my age. So she's real youth. It's a brand new album from her though.
You guys have time to listen to music?
We drive a lot.
Oh yeah, okay.
Yeah, but like, I also go to the gym.
Oh yeah, okay, makes sense. So my recommendation is not music; it's a book. It's called Pineapple Street. It's by Jenny Jackson.
It's so good.
I've been wanting to read it.
Oh, you've read it?
Yeah.
Oh, I just started reading it. I'm really enjoying it. It's about 3 women who live in Brooklyn Heights, and they're all dealing with money in different ways. One of them has a lot of money. One of them wants to get money. One of them wants to get rid of her money. And it's brunches and glamour and money and society. So, all the good stuff. So it's a good way to end the year.
It's fantastic. It's a really good book.
Well,
what a
that's
pleasure,
great.
guys.
Well, that's it for today. Thank you so much for listening.
If you like this episode, please follow and subscribe on your favourite podcasting app.
And don't forget to follow us on social media and to tell your friends about it. Bye.
Bye.